So I woke up this morning to this idea that life is about choices. And it didn't seem very profound straight away, but I couldn't go back to sleep. And just the simple phrase, life is about choices, was kind of scrolling in my mind's eye. And eventually I recognized when I'm getting kind of messaging. So I rose to it and just jotted a few things down pertaining to it, because it really didn't seem very profound. Obviously, we make choices every single day, not a big deal, but it was just a really simple message. Life is about choices. And so, I just let that develop a little bit. And frankly, the next thing was that, with predictable choices come predictable results. And what it was trying to illustrate was that as we go through our life, and most certainly when we get to these kind of 30s, 40s, 50s, kind of middle of the lifetime, if you will, we have so many patterns and so many, choices that we make that no longer feel like choices. And, people, I think, are pretty convinced as they go through their daily life that, I think we call it going through the motions, right? And we kind of allow going through the motions to become something that we no longer are a very intentional captain of. And that can be all the habits on a daily basis that we engage in. And so this notion of life being about choices came through in that, a lot of people want to change their life, want to change the timeline they're on, want to change their financial situation. They want to, find a career that's fulfilling and that they're passionate about, instead of this notion of Groundhog Day and kind of, waking up to the prison that is your life. And, I used to own a business, and I remember thinking quite early on that the business actually owned me. And because that's how it felt. It felt like I was answering to the business 24/7. And, it didn't make me per se feel free. It made me feel at the beck and call of the business. And, a lot of the things that we think we want can often end up being the inverse of that, of what we want. And we just discovered that by going through it. But anyhow, the notion of choice, I think, again, like all things in the healing process, let's have a look at it, right? Let's look at what we're doing on a daily basis. So for you, yourself, I think just look at your days, look at your week, your Monday through Friday, and write down and think of three things, just three simple choices that you make on a day-to-day basis that, and again, you got to kind of examine this. Like a lot of this healing work and uncovering and turning over stones, it's so subconscious to us that we didn't know it was there. We have no idea how profound little things are. So just look at the habits. What do you do when you wake up? What do you do before you go to bed? What do you do that's on autopilot? I know for me, I'm making coffee straight away. That kettle is on immediately. I've studied that one. I'm not letting go of that one right this moment. But I do understand that that's a habit and a choice that I'm making every single day, even if I might not think of it as much of a choice. And, so as I'm having this thought, this is a little side story, but my son is next to me. He wakes up and immediately says, "Did the Tigers win?" And he's talking about a baseball team. He's talking about the Detroit Tigers. And we actually live on the other side of the world. So the timing, isn't quite the same. So I was like, I don't think they've played yet, whatever. But in my head, it's something I very intentionally try not to do. Which is to say, I try not to wake up and immediately give my power away to an outcome that I have no control over, such as a game. You could think of this also like the news, politics, and anything that you would follow, right? That you don't necessarily have control over, but that you tap into or tune into. And, I've become very vigilant about this because it's just a choice and a habit that I've chosen to notice. And I really didn't want to look at it. And I'm telling him, that's like not how I start my day. I like to do a little namu namu, like little, prayer with my singing bowl, and just start with gratitude, for instance, or affirmations, these kind of things, as a way to start my day, because I can control those. They calibrate me to gratitude, which really starts my day the way that I need it to start, focusing on the things that I need to focus on, because focusing on gratitude allows you to see all your blessings instead of to focus on the things that you don't have. And so anyhow, he got me to check. I checked, and it was just like the headline that I read. It was just, it was basically a terrible loss. They were winning by 7 and totally blew it in one of their best pitchers' last games. And, just, it was a bit extra. And I say that in the sense of, like, I see everything as a spiritual teaching. So I'm looking at this like, wow, like, of course that's what this result was. Not something very simple, but just something where you're like, oh no, we really blew it, and it was somebody's last game, and it's all consequential, so on and so forth. I saw that, and I felt that coming in. I didn't let it affect me more than it needed to. It's just a game. It doesn't really matter. But I think we all can identify with this, because we all do this in our own ways. A lot of people wake up, roll over, grab their phones, and look at the news. And if you haven't caught on by now, the news is going to give you bad news. It should just be called bad news, because it's not going to give you beautiful birth of the day, kind gesture of the day. It's not going to do that. It's going to give you geopolitical insanity that your nervous system will be unable to regulate. And so that's a simple choice. That way that we start each day is a simple choice. And if we start the day tying into the news, which is going to give you things that don't make your nervous system feel settled, feel grounded, feel safe, then we are choosing to start each day that way. And by doing so, we're relinquishing our power, our internal divine power. Every single morning, we give it away straight away. And that will affect everything that happens for the rest of that day. So life being about making choices is an incredible epiphany. It's super easy to just look at your life, zero guilt. You don't have to have any shame or guilt. Again, we're healing from home here, so do this at your own pace, and do this if you want to. If it doesn't resonate, throw it away. Just do what you feel like doing. But I promise you that just examining it a little bit is going to show some obvious places where little tweaks are available. And if you make those tweaks and do it for 2 weeks or 30 days, make a tweak. One of the easiest ones is how you start your day and how you finish your day. And if you traded out, immediately going to the news or a doom scroll for, a little gratitude prayer, and you did the same thing at night, all the things you were grateful for, you would notice some change after 30 days. Because if you change an input, you're going to change an output. And when people are feeling stuck, when people are feeling like their life is not providing anything new, when you feel like you're in a loop and you're getting the same result no matter what you're doing, it's because something is being asked to be seen and something is being asked to be changed. And that process of acknowledgement and change will allow transformative energy in, and will allow for new currents to take you to new destinations. And so it's really, really simple, and it's quite profound, but it's very subtle, and it escapes each and every one of us every single day. There are many choices that I could continue to refine. So, by no means is this, I'm not guilting you. There's nothing like that. It's just, there's so much self-discovery when you actually do it. And so many of the choices and decisions are really simple. And so some of those things could be your diet, making different choices at the grocery store. Some of those things could be a choice to say, I'm just going to wake up 10 minutes earlier. I'm going to walk around the block. You don't need to walk 5 miles. You don't need to run 10 miles. You just one little shift. I'm going to do a little 10-minute walk around my neighborhood in the morning before I do my regular affairs. I'm going to, cut back on that third coffee, and I'm going to go to just having a morning coffee and an afternoon coffee. I'm going to cut back on sugar, or I'm going to do intermittent fasting. So I'm going to stop eating at 8 p.m. and I'm not going to start eating till 10 a.m. Any of these little micro adjustments are going to start to have little domino effects in what we would otherwise think of as our Groundhog Day or our never-ending loop. And once you do this, you start to realize you're the architect. You truly are the architect. You're the designer, and your intention will chart the course of this vessel. And your life is a thermostat. You set it. And if you set it to 72 degrees or 25 Celsius or wherever you're at, and you set it to be the same way by the choices you make every single day, then it's going to be the exact same thing. You're going to get the same result. But if you go up to that thermostat and drastically change it, like people do cold plunges to shock the nervous system, right? You will be able to experience immense change, and you will start to bring that power back into your center as you realize you are the captain of your own experience. And it's liberating. It is a beautiful thing, and I know you can do it, and it's simple. So just write down three things you do, examine them a little bit, and just make some micro changes, see what happens. Not a big deal. Do it at your own pace. You've got the support of the universe behind you, and many blessings. Much love. Peace.